All right, let's jump right in. Today, we are breaking down a huge legal showdown between the state of California and the White House. We're talking about a fight over putting military troops on American streets, and it just got a pretty stunning verdict.
So that fiery message you see, that's from California Governor Gavin Newsom. It's basically his victory lap after a federal judge handed him a massive win. But what exactly just happened? And what does this mean for presidential power? Well, that's what we're about to unpack. This goes way beyond just a heated post on social media. This is actually the climax of a major legal battle over one of the most sensitive topics in American law, using the military to enforce laws here at home. So let's get straight into it. Okay, first things first. Let's look at the heart of the decision itself. What did the judge actually say? And maybe more importantly, why did he say it? So here's the breakdown. On September 2nd, U.S. District Judge Charles Breyer dropped a bombshell of a ruling. He said the deployment of National Guard troops and Marines in Los Angeles was illegal. And the reason he gave? A violation of a very specific and actually very old federal law called the Posse Comitatus Act. To really get what the judge was thinking, we need to zero in on this one single law that's at the center of this entire case.
So the big question is, why? I mean, what makes deploying troops in an American city illegal in this case? The answer is all wrapped up in this one piece of legislation.
And this is it, the Posse Comitatus Act. Now, it sounds complicated, but the idea is actually pretty simple. It's a law that goes all the way back to the period right after the Civil War, and it was created specifically to stop federal troops from being used as a domestic police force. The whole point for over a century has been to draw a bright line in the sand separating the military from civilian police. The idea is that soldiers shouldn't be acting like cops on American streets. So what did the troops actually do that crossed that line? Well, according to the judge, they weren't just standing around. They were actively involved in things like crowd control and setting up traffic blockades. The court said, look, these are classic law enforcement activities, and because of that, it was a direct violation of the act. Now, this is a really crucial point. It's not like the president can never deploy troops this way. There is a legal exception. A president can do it, but they have to officially invoke something called the Insurrection Act. Think of it this way. The Posse Comitatus Act is the general rule, the big no. The Insurrection Act is the specific exception, the special key needed to unlock that power. And in this case, the administration never used that key. That was the fatal flaw in their whole argument. Okay, so the deployment was ruled illegal. But what does that mean in the real world right now? Let's talk about the immediate impact. This is probably the first question on your mind, and the answer is actually no, not right away. The legal system still has a few more moves to play.
And just to give you a sense of the scale here, we're talking about roughly 250 to 300 personnel. It's a mix of National Guard and Marines. So while it's not a massive army, their presence was definitely significant enough to kick off this major legal challenge.
The ruling itself came down on September 2nd, but the injunction, that's the actual order telling them to stop, it doesn't go into effect until September 12th. This little delay gives the administration a really critical window to file an appeal and try to stop the order before it even starts. And this is a key detail to remember. Judge Breyer's order, while powerful, is limited by geography. It only stops these specific military activities inside the state of California. It does not prevent similar things from happening elsewhere in the country. So let's zoom out now, because this case is about so much more than a few hundred troops in Los Angeles. It actually gets right to the fundamental structure of American government. What we're seeing here is a textbook example of checks and balances in action. I mean, it's like a civics class come to life. First, the executive branch, the president, used its power. Then, a state challenged that power, which is a question of federalism. And finally, the judicial branch, the courts, stepped in to limit that power. This is exactly how the system is designed to work. And because the stakes are so incredibly high here, we're literally talking about defining the limits of a president's military authority on U.S. soil. A lot of legal experts think this fight is far from over. In fact, this has all the ingredients of a case that could eventually end up in front of the Supreme Court. As you can imagine, a ruling this big triggered some very strong and very different reactions from everyone involved. So on the administration side, the argument from acting U.S. Attorney Bill Essayali is that the judge just got it wrong. Their position is that the troops weren't enforcing laws, they were simply providing protection. It's a subtle difference in wording, but it's a critical legal distinction that they will almost certainly use in their appeal. And then, of course, you have Governor Newsom's completely opposite take. For California, the very presence of uniformed troops setting up perimeters and directing traffic is a form of law enforcement. They see it as an illegal militarization of a civilian space. And these two quotes perfectly capture the heart of the entire debate. So let's wrap this all up with the key things to remember. 1. A federal judge ruled the troop deployment in LA was illegal because of that 19th century law. 2. The order to stop isn't immediate, and for now, it only applies to California. 3. This is a major check on presidential power. And 4. This legal fight is probably just getting started, so keep an eye out for a potential Supreme Court battle. And that leaves us with the fundamental question this whole case forces us all to think about. In a free society, where exactly is the line between the role of a soldier and the role of a police officer? This ruling gives one answer, but the debate is far from over.